Okay, so welcome to January in the Garden. And we'll just jump right in with some housekeeping. This presentation is being recorded and we're going to post it on our website, actually on our YouTube channel, and we'll have a link to it on our website. That link is on the left-hand side of our website under recent presentations. So if you want to review this or you want to share it with somebody who might have missed it, then they can go to recent presentations. And you can also find other presentations we've done on growing vegetables and seed saving and other topics. Feel free to ask questions as we go along. You can put them in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, you can also do that. I have the cameras turned off just to for the recording and also for myself to save bandwidth. But really quickly, there I am. And so hello, so there is a real person over here. Turn off my video. And we'll just keep the mics muted when you're not asking questions. And then I already showed you where to find a PDF of the presentation. The recent presentation has a link to the videos. We also put a PDF of the presentation. And we also put a resource sheet that has all the links that I'll reference in this presentation. So you can also find that there. If you don't want to watch the video again, or you don't want to review the presentation, you just want the links that I shared, those are on what we call our resource sheets. And you can also save links that we drop in the chat by clicking the three dots on the upper right-hand side of your chat and by clicking Save Chat. Unless you're on a phone, I don't think you can do that. Okay. So we're the San Bernardino County Master Gardeners, part of the Division of Agriculture and Natural Resources. And we're a group of trained volunteers who educate the public by sharing peer-reviewed research done by the University of California and other universities. And in our county, we focus on growing food, sustainable landscaping, and better living through gardening. And really, we're just passionate plant people who love to share what we know about gardening and the resources we know about with gardeners throughout the county. We have several other programs that operate out of our county, 4-H. We have a Master Food Preserver program that also does free classes online and in person, so check them out. We also have an expanded food and nutrition program. Our county has a seed library. With that seed library, we do seed saving education, and we also have free seeds that we give out. We used to have a model of having like a physical seed library, and one was in Montclair and one was in Yucaipa. But now we're looking to transition that to be more like a pop-up kind of activity, where like at Chino Community Garden, we do monthly presentations, and I know a couple of you guys are in that area. And so if you go to those Chino Community Garden presentations done by our master gardeners, they have seeds there, and you can donate seeds and pick up seeds for your garden as well that are free. But we also have our seed saving classes, and those are all online. This weekend at 8:30, we're going to do one on seed saving troubleshooting and the challenges and all the different issues that people have with seed saving. And we're also going to post that on our website, on our YouTube channel. And so if you're not available on Saturday morning, or you're outside gardening, or you're still sleeping, then you can listen to that later. Really quickly, I'm going to talk about citrus greening disease. It's a public service announcement that we do at the beginning of every presentation. You may have heard it before. If you're just joining us, then again, this is January in the Garden. And really quickly, I'm going to talk about citrus greening disease, but I'm also going to give you an update that's relevant to January in the Garden. So if you're familiar with citrus greening disease, then you also know it's called Huang Long Bing, or HLB. It's a disease, it's a bacteria, and once infected, it's fatal to citrus trees. It kills them in about 10 years. It's not harmful to people, but it ruins the flavor of the fruit and the tree dies. It has been found, the disease has been found all over Southern California within these blue lines. Where's my cursor? So LA, Orange, and San Bernardino, Riverside County, and also San Diego County. So the disease has been found all over. And as they're finding trees that are infected, they're removing them. The disease is spread by a small insect, the Asian citrus psyllid. It's about the size of a half a grain of rice, and it's active right now. So when we talk about things to do in the garden in January, even though it's cooler, I have seen some activity in my yard, and I've heard other people report that they're seeing activity. So this insect likes to come out when the citrus trees put out their new growth. And it feeds on trees, and it carries, when it feeds on an infected tree, it carries the bacteria to the next tree. So we want to be on the lookout for this insect. And again, it's about the size of a half a grain of rice, so pretty tiny. It causes the fruit to become misshapen, very bitter. And this one down here in the center are the early signs of this disease. And it's an asymmetrical yellowing of the leaves. This here on the right is this fatal citrus disease, the asymmetrical yellowing of this citrus greening disease. On the left, something you'll see in the garden. Usually you don't see it as much in January, but we're kind of having weird weather. And so the citrus leaf miner, which is a tiny moth, it will feed, it will lay its eggs on the citrus leaves, and they'll curl up and they'll look terrible. And usually you see this in the spring and the fall, but I'm noticing it right now. But usually during the winter months, it's a little bit less noticeable. The moth is not as active. And then you'll see this a lot in October and March. And this here on the left, this is not citrus greening disease. And it's actually mostly just cosmetic. So if you are seeing these on your trees right now, then go ahead and just leave it alone. If it bothers you, you can pick them off. But they're mostly just cosmetic damage. If you see this symptoms on the right-hand side, then you want to be looking out for other symptoms of citrus greening and finding out more about that. Just recently in Ontario, since some of you guys live kind of near Ontario, Ontario sort of exploded as a hot spot, and some variants of this citrus greening bacteria seem to be more active than others or more successful at spreading than others. And I'm not sure if that's what's going on, but in Ontario, they found like 50 some new cases in the last several weeks. And of course, as they find new cases, they test more in the area, but it's very active in the area. So if you have citrus in San Bernardino County or anywhere, but especially near the Ontario area, you really need to be mindful of these steps. You don't want to share stems and leaves when you're making like decorations. I saw someone share a beautiful kumquat wreath, and they posted that they shared it with somebody else, and you know, they could be unknowingly spreading the insects on the foliage. And if you're sharing fruit, you want to remove stems and leaves. And for your trimmings, you're supposed to put those in the trash, not the green waste. So if you imagine this insect is the size of a half a grain of rice, then this is the size of the eggs. And so they're very tiny, and it's very easy to spread these insects that are carrying this deadly bacteria on the fruit, on the leaves. So you want to clean the stems and leaves off of your fruit if you're going to share fruit. You want to not share cuttings. If you're doing any citrus cuttings, usually the ideal time to grow citrus from cuttings is in the spring or the fall. And so in a couple months, you could be grafting citrus if that's what you're interested in, but you need to get a clean source of budwood, getting it from your friends and neighbors. It can take a couple years for those symptoms to show up on trees, and it can be infected before there's any signs. So you want to get clean budwood. And then you want to keep ants out of your trees and plants. And that's something you're going to want to do with all of your trees and plants that are having problems with infestations. The ants are going to help protect these harmful insects from the beneficial insects that come into our yard. So the ants will take ladybugs, praying mantis, syrphid flies, and their larvae are great beneficial predators. There's parasitic wasps, and the ants will throw those off of the plants because they want to protect these insects. So if you have aphids in any of your vegetables, aphids in your roses or any of your plants, then the ants will actually protect the aphids from beneficial predators. So I know a lot of people make a lot of efforts to bring ladybugs and other beneficial predators into their yard, and the ants will protect the bad bugs, we'll call them, from the good bugs. So you want to keep ants in your yard under control. Ants do serve a purpose. They're pollinators and they're decomposers, but they do protect harmful insects. And we'll talk about that more in a little bit. If you want to learn more about this disease, there's a website you can go check out. And there's 2 more pests, and then I'll check in and see. I saw something to see if there is a black fig fly. So if you have figs, where's my cursor? If you have figs and the fruit falls off before it ripens, or you see these sort of this kind of damage inside the fruit, then it could be a black fig fly. That's an emerging pest that you can be on the lookout. If you don't have figs, it's not something you need to worry about, but I just wanted to throw that out there. And also, none of you guys are that close. So actually, Laverne, you might be in the medfly quarantine, but we also have a medfly quarantine. And to learn more about that, there's a website we'll drop in the chat, but you're not supposed to remove fruit from your property, and you want to throw away fallen fruit. But if you want to learn more, you can go to the website that we'll share on the medfly. So Donna, were there any questions, or was that just links in the chat?
No, it's me dropping links in the chat, Maggie.
Okay, great. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about where we are weather-wise, and then we're going to cover what to plant, pests to look for, care of your plants, a few other chores. We'll talk briefly about seed saving, and then we'll wrap up. So for our rain totals, it's kind of small. If you need glasses like me, I got to put my computer right next to my face. If you go to, there is a website, the CIMIS website, CIMIS, and it doesn't have all of the regions, but you can find regions near to you. There's lots of other ways to find rain total. But if you look at the weather for both Los Angeles, Pomona area, and Riverside, we all know it was so dry last year. Just less than an inch of rain until all the way till December. And then we had that like 7 inches of rain in December. So if you were like me, like my roof made it till the last day of the last rainstorm, and then it started leaking a little bit. So we've had a really dry weather followed by a big dump of rain. And one of the things about that rain is that probably a lot of it soaked in, but not all of that went into the ground. A lot of it's going to wash off just because it came so quickly. So I've noticed that my potted plants are getting really dry. So even though we did have that rain, it really, like as soon as that last storm was over, it completely dried up. And my potted plants are getting dry. There's some areas in my yard that are shaded that are still a little bit wet. So like when we talk about lawn care right at the end for just a minute, then one of the things is that, you need to check your soil for your lawn. You maybe want to turn off your sprinklers if your lawn is a little bit in the shade, but things are starting to dry out pretty quickly again. The CIMIS or the CIMIS, California Irrigation Management Information System website, if you're a weather nerd, we're going to drop that in. That's a cool website to play around with. Just for a drought check-in, I always caution people to get too excited about when we get rain, and I caution myself too not to get my hopes up too much. But I feel like with COVID, we need a little bit of a win, right? So this was October of 2021, and you can see that most of, here's San Bernardino County, ironically or unusually, Southern California was not the worst hit by the drought, but we had some extreme drought areas, exceptional drought areas, and most of it was in severe drought. And here we are in January on the left with, we're really excited because we're only in severe drought. I didn't really think about it like that. And in San Bernardino County, we're only in moderate drought. So go moderate drought, woo. So that was a little bit of a win. But if you go to the same website and you navigate around, they also have an outlook. And this is Drought Monitor. I apologize, I don't know what the UNL, I was going to figure that out and then I got sidetracked. But this is posted through reputable sources. And so they have like the drought outlook here. And most of our region is that the drought persists. That is the outlook for the rest of January and the spring. So that's where we are weather-wise. I wanted to touch on the chill hours that we've gotten so far. And I'll talk about where we are and then a little bit more about what that means. Some of you guys this may be old information to you, and share the website where we get this information. So for our chill hours for the year, and this is a time running from November 1st through February 28th. And this accumulation is tracked. And so we have on the left-hand side, we have two charts here. I hope this isn't. So the chart here on the left shows that it's November 1st through February 28th. And here you can see Los Angeles County data is in this box here. And San Bernardino County data is in this box down here. I can totally see this is not clear now. I apologize. But so the left-hand column for Los Angeles, this is total chill hours below 45 degrees. I'll talk about more, give that some context in just a minute. And then the one on the right-hand side is chill hours between 32 and 45. So for example, Pomona has had 263 chill hours so far. So if you're familiar with fruit trees, then we're doing pretty good. We got another month and a half to get our chill hours in. And right now we're at 263 chill hours. Victorville, which is down here right on the bottom of your screen. And you might not be able to see it if you're, depending on how your screen is. Victorville is at 675 chill hours. And 580 of those are in the peak chilling period chilling temperature between 32 and 45. So Victorville already has enough chill hours to grow a lot of fruit trees. In the Inland Empire, we're about halfway there to get a good crop. So that is our count for the year so far. Here it is in a graph, and blue line is, let's see here. The dark blue line is 2021. And you can see for UC Riverside, just over 200 chill hours. It's this one that drops off right here. And for Victorville, they're just around, looks like around 580. So that's what I said earlier, I think 580. So that's how many chill hours they've had this year. You'll notice that right around February, if you look here on the bottom axis, this is the date, and it runs, the chill hours start counting right on the 1st of November. And you notice they have data that goes all the way through August, but the chill hours only count for the fruit trees to make fruit through the end of February. You'll also notice that these numbers kind of level off right around mid-March, but the chill hours you get after, like in March, sometimes that can be more harmful to the fruit than helpful. Okay. So if you're not familiar with what chill hours and all those numbers that I just rattled off, then the chill hours are the number of hours below 45 degrees required by a fruit tree between November 1st and February 15th or February 30th. And if they don't get the chill hours, it causes death of the buds, so the fruit trees don't make fruit. The bloom time can be extended, and it leads to poor fruit set. When the bloom time is extended, it increases the pathogens which enter the flowers and damage the fruit. So that's what chilling hours are in a nutshell. In the Inland Empire, the two biggest problems with growing fruit trees are planting the wrong types that don't get enough chill hours, or not having enough pollination. So just for an example, so remember Pomona is at what, 263 chill hours? The only fruit trees that we could grow are almonds, figs, pecans, and pomegranates this year so far. But we're not done counting the chill hours, and hopefully we'll get another few hundred, and then we'll get some good apples, we'll get some good apricots, some good peaches, and some plums, and also some maybe low chill hour pears. Did you know that blueberries also require chill hours? If you go to purchase blueberries right now, then you'll notice there's two different kinds, well, lots of different varieties, but read the labels. Some of them will say low chill hour, but it won't identify how many chill hours it needs. And on average, those need, if I remember correctly, about 300 to 400 chill hours. So those are the low chill hour varieties. There's also ones that will say 700 to 800 chill hours because blueberries are growing much more successfully up north where it's cooler. And those 700 to 800 chill hour berries are not usually going to do well in the Inland Empire. And I've seen them for sale in garden centers around the Inland Empire. And I never thought to look. I just looked at the name, like the variety, like one of them is O'Neill and that's my last name. So I'm like, oh, that must be great, you know, but you need to look at the chill hours on the tag if you're going to purchase blueberries. Okay. And all of these fruit as well. Any of these fruit trees that you're buying should tell you the chill hours. So to find out those chill hour, that chill hour information for your own area, then you can go to this website from UC Davis Fruits and Nuts. We'll drop that in the chat. This is what the website looks like. They have a new version, which I'm not familiar with. And if you click on this red bar, you get the old one and you want to select the weather related models here. And that will give you all that information I shared. You guys have any questions about the chill hours or anything? You can write questions in the chat. You can unmute yourself. I'll let my clock chime. I have an old timey clock.
Yeah, chat's clear so far.
Okay, so we're gonna go into now what to plant in January. For your ornamentals, there's lots of bare root shrubs, vines, trees, and perennials. We'll talk later about fruit trees, grapes, and berries. A lot of those are in the garden centers right now as bare root. Your living Christmas tree. I just planted 2 small Christmas trees that we had bought for our desktop, or, you know, like for the kids' tables. And so we planted those. And you can also, your dormant shrubs, it's interesting, are your camellias and azaleas, and they're dormant when they're in bloom. And we'll cover this again, but just so you don't forget, tropical plants like your citrus or your avocados, or some of your more sensitive succulents, then you'll want to wait until March because our coldest time of year is usually in February. And so let the nursery deal with keeping those plants alive during the coldest time of the year and plan to buy those in March. Same with some of the house plants. Believe it or not, you know, like in the wintertime, one of the things that happens to house plants is they get cooked because people are running their heaters all the time and it's a very dry heat. So you want to be checking your house plants for kind of like summertime condition type things going on, like drying out quickly or being too close to heat sources or vents. So keep an eye on those plants. So your indoor plants can often overheat in the wintertime, and then your outdoor plants can freeze. Ornamental trees, acacias, dogwoods, forsythias, lilacs, your flowering quince, and we mentioned your living Christmas tree already. For your ornamental seeds, and a lot of these you can plant, like you have your Alyssum, coreopsis, English daisies, dianthus and cosmos, impatiens, marigolds, petunias, you would be planting like from seeds. Petunias are usually a warm weather or a spring flower, but you can plant them from seeds in a little bit. If you're buying them in a pot, you might want to wait until a little bit later in the year. They can freeze. Nasturtiums are also an edible flower that you can plant. Forget-me-not-nots, hollyhocks, and like larkspur. Pansies, California poppies, snapdragons, and native wildflowers. And we'll talk more about natives. Also, the impatiens as well are susceptible to cold snaps. So you would be planting those from seeds, or if you're planting them in pots, wait, the impatiens and the petunias, wait until it's a little bit warmer or provide them with some protection. Alyssum looks very similar to this flower on the right-hand side. That's this flower here on the upper left. And that one attracts the syrphid fly, which is a great beneficial predator The adult drinks nectar, but I think also eats some bugs, and the larvae are great in the fight against the citrus greening disease because they'll eat those insects, but they also eat aphids. And I hear that gophers don't like alyssum. I don't know if that's true or not, but alyssum is a really great flower. And it's really cool if you buy it in purple and it seeds itself, the next year it will come up white. But what will happen is if it keeps reseeding itself, every once in a while you'll see a purple one pop up. And that's because the white is the dominant color and the purple is a recessive gene. So it's kind of a neat plant to bring into your yard. Roses, if you haven't started a rose garden, now is a great time to do it. I don't have a website on it. I'm not sure if you can find it. There's something called Earth Friendly Roses.
I'm gonna look.
Yeah, and Lindsay Rummel did a great presentation on that. And it's with the Texas A&M or a university in Texas. And they've found a lot of roses that are water wise and do really well with reduced water. So we always think about roses being really water thirsty, and a lot of them are, but it's a great time to grow them. And there are some earth kind or earth friendly varieties. You want to make sure that when you're transplanting them, you add, I just did a bunch, so I'm thinking about humus and potash, and then don't add too much nitrogen to prevent early blooming. Some good cutting roses, Mr. Lincoln. Well, here's a list. I'll let you guys sort of look this over. And again, this PowerPoint will be in the resource section on our website. But these are some good cutting roses to consider. Some varieties, some fragrant ones. I have a Mr. Lincoln, and also I really like Double Delight. And they're and the earth kind roses are also really pretty. They're not sort of like compromised roses. There's several that are like David Austin roses. With that, I forgot what they call it, but like the double bloom. They're very pretty. You can continue planting bulbs. I have some bulbs that I'm planting. It's a little bit later than like daffodils. What is it? Daffodils go in at Thanksgiving and tulips go in at Christmas. Maybe it's the other way around. Don't quote me on that, but I'm still planting some narcissus, and I notice they're just emerging right now. You can be also planting your gladiolas, amaryllis, cyclamen, your callas, your montabretas, which I'm actually not familiar with that one, and your, that last word, nerines. I don't want to mispronounce that. Cyclamen are ones that are really nice. They go dormant in the summer, so just like your other bulbs, you can just kind of turn them on their side with really nice holiday additions. You guys have any questions about the ornamentals? If nothing's in the chat, I'll keep going. Okay, so this is the time to plant your cool season veggies. I do want to note the Brussels sprouts and celery generally prefer to be planted in the warm fall soil. So your brassicas include things like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, kale, cabbage, and many other varieties in that family. And they usually take about 3 months for maturity. Some of them are a little bit closer to, they're like 90 to 110 days. So I guess that's actually almost 4 months. So they take a long time to ripen. And so if you're going to do anything in the brassica family, the broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, kale, then it's a good time to get it going, because if we have a short spring, then sometimes they'll go to flower before they really reach maturity. Brussels sprouts and celery, if you haven't done them yet this year and you want to do them, you can give them a try. But if you don't have success with getting them started, then try a little bit earlier in the cool season, which would be like end of September, October. And apparently they do better with going into warmer soil. Okay, and then if you do have frost sensitive veggies, which I'm thinking like lettuce especially, then you could protect those with a frost cloth or mulch, straw mulch. And your warm season veggies, this is kind of a time of year where you can be outdoors growing your cool season veggies, and your warm season veggies can be started by seed. I know some people who have started their tomatoes already. So a lot of people start their tomatoes and peppers early. And what happens is if we have a long, cold winter, then they have a hard time. They get really leggy, they call it, where they're like growing too much. They're like, really long and skinny. And then then they're kind of foiled. But then if we have an early spring, they're able to plant, or like, it warms up early. Then they're able to plant them outside and they can get tomatoes by the end of May. So it's always a gamble when you're doing your seed starting. So not a bad idea is to start some seeds now, and then definitely in February, and March is kind of toward the later end. So start thinking about planting your warm season veggies by seed if you're going to be protecting them from the cold air, either indoors or in like hot house, or what are they called? The little grow boxes. Totally blanking on the name of what those are called.
You mean a cold frame?
Cold frame. Thank you, Donna. Thank you. So some other vegetables.
We've got a question about Romanesco cauliflower. When's the best time to plant it?
Probably like a month ago, and probably if not a month ago right now. So maybe the end of November. I think the Romanesco, like the cauliflowers, I don't know about that one specifically, but usually I think they're all 90 to 110 days, 120 days. So if we have a cool winter, you'll be fine to plant it now, but probably next season, start planting them in November. Okay. And then the other thing too is that then if we have a really cold February or like snow or some random weirdness, then if you plant them in late October or November, you might be able to get them harvested, and you can also do 2 crops in the year. So ideal time is October, November. Second best time is right now, and probably through early February. Probably after that is too late. Okay. So here's some other vegetables: artichokes, rhubarb, asparagus, horseradish, kiwi fruit. Kiwi fruit needs a male and female, and it also doesn't need chill hours. It doesn't do well in the Southern California warmer climates. I actually don't know if it goes through the same chemistry as chill hours, but I know it does better in colder areas. And you need a male and female. And then you can seedlings, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, lettuces, peas, carrots, radishes, all those things you can continue to plant. You'll notice these beautiful purple artichokes here, and they're like covered with aphids. So we need some beneficial predators. And I bet there was some ants cruising around on this plant, harvesting the honeydew from these little aphids, protecting them from beneficial predators. So we want to keep the ants out of this and bring some beneficial predators into the yard. You can plant also beets, kale, lettuce, carrots, onions, radishes, peas, leeks, different types of lettuce, greens, spinach, turnips, and chard. Strawberries, I kind of say plant them when you can find them in the market. The best time to be planting your strawberries is in like late October or November. And then maybe the second best time is like end of January, February, to allow them to establish some roots. And you can use straw to protect them a little bit from the colder weather if we have cold weather, and also protect them from snails and slugs. And good time to be checking out your seed catalogs, thinking about, if you have a little seed library at home, thinking about what you're growing for your indoor seed starting January and February is the time to get going. And like I said, a lot of people are starting their tomatoes, peppers, and herbs indoors in late January and early February. For your fruit trees, that's your citrus and your subtropicals. Your subtropicals are things like avocados, and your things that are not deciduous, the ones that don't lose leaves, mangoes, bananas, what else? Other subtropical type things. This is not the good time to plant them. They're frost sensitive, and one of the things when you plant plants is it stimulates growth, because the roots get out of that pot and they're really excited and they're going to grow, and that will stimulate new growth. But again, let the nurseries deal with the frost damage to these plants, and get yourself some subtropicals in March is a good time. I've never seen them in bare root forms since they don't go dormant. I'm not sure that maybe they sell them in bare root forms, but I've never seen it. So get ready and plan what you're going to plant in spring. The publication that I recommend is one called Tried and True or something new and this is for citrus. And this is an older publication, but it's such a great publication. And we'll drop that link in the chat. And what I love about it is the last page. I couldn't show all of it in a readable way, but it's this page 15, and it shows all the different fruits and when they ripen. So if you want successive ripening, you can have citrus like 9 months out of the year. So if you're planning some sort of extravagant citrus yard, then you can plan when your fruits are successively ripened. For your stone fruits or your palm fruits, then now is the time to plant those, and now is the time to find them. You want to choose trees that are suited for your location. And basically that means, getting ones that are going to get enough chill hours for you. And I think when I was writing this bullet points, I had two different things going on in my mind. So I don't read it, and just I'll walk you through it. But so basically you want to choose trees that are suited for your location, meaning ones that are getting enough chill hours. And you can go to that fruitsandnuts.com website, and I'll show you another place. And most fruit trees, when you buy them, then they'll have information about the chill hours. So for Pomona, for example, there's about 400 to 600 chill hours. And so I know if I'm buying a fruit tree, I try to buy something in the need it's about no more than 550 or 600 chill hours. You might want to choose trees that ripen in terms of fruit trees when it's best for you. So like if you have hot summers, depending on where you are, choose trees that are early ripening. We recommend that for the high desert or for the Coachella area so that they can pick the fruit before it's outrageously hot. If you have an area where you get really low chill hours, then choose a variety that gets those lower chill hours or only requires those few chill hours. You might need to, with some varieties, like with cherries, usually you need to buy 2 different types of cherries, or with avocados, you need to buy 2 different types. One is a pollinizer. And then they also have cocktail trees where they have different varieties on the same tree. And they have some that like they have, it's a regular tree, but you prune it like a fruit bush. Some of those are higher maintenance and can give you one type of result. And there's also trees that are much lower maintenance. So those are the different things to consider. And if you have questions about that, you can reach out to our Master Gardener helpline and we can help you make those choices. We're also going to be doing some fruit tree workshops online, and you can ask questions there as well. And we have an Ask a Master Gardener time that we do online, and you can like join in and say, I want to plant 5 fruit trees and this is where I live. What do you recommend? And we could ask you some questions. The bare root fruit trees are the ones that don't have any soil. They have like sawdust or a little bit of soil on them. Some of them are completely bare, but that's what's available online right now and in the garden centers. And that's a great way to go. They're less expensive and you're getting them when they're young, and you can have them grow up in your yard. You want to choose plants that have healthy roots. The roots should be sort of creamy white and should be, nice and solid and not breaking off. And so if you were to go to a garden center and buy a fruit tree and the roots aren't healthy, most reputable places will take those trees back. But just look for the health of the roots. And you can also buy most fruit trees, stone fruit trees, throughout the year in pots as well. But right now, while they're dormant, is a great time to buy them and plant them. There's a website that I'm not endorsing as a master gardener, but it's a cool website, Dave Wilson's Nursery. They're a nursery, and they have a really cool website. And on their website, this is one of the pieces of their website, or one of the links on their website, and it shows the harvesting for all different types. So if you want to have successive harvesting of apricots, it tells you which types and when you can harvest them throughout the year. So Dave Wilson's Nursery has a lot of really cool resources. They also have, when I'm planning like to buy a peach, I'll go on their website, and if you select peaches, then you can read about a bunch of different types of peaches and kind of compare and use them as a shopping list. And a lot of the nurseries, when you go to purchase fruit trees or blueberries, a lot of times they come from this nursery. They don't sell directly from their website, but you'll find their resources. There's UCR, UCANR, Home Orchards. That's another place you can go to read more about fruit trees and find out what you might want to buy. For your native and other pollinators, in terms of what to plant, now's a good time to plant all of your native plants. There may be a couple varieties that are frost sensitive, but most of them that I can think of off the top of my head are not too frost sensitive. And if you're doing pollinator friendly plants, there's a lot of great plants you can plant right now. With the rain, if we get some more rain, they should establish mostly on their own. But if it continues to be dry, then they'll probably need some water to help them establish. So maybe watering once a week or so. And you can plant more frost sensitive plants, but you'll just want to make sure you protect them in February or if it gets below 32 while they're still very young. So native plants, they're really hardy, but in that first couple of months while they're establishing, they may need a little bit of frost protection or they may need a little bit of extra water if it's super dry. Here's some great websites to find what we call the right plant and the right for the right place. And these are native and non-native plants. I know, Donna, this graphic is super annoying because I don't think you can copy all the links at the same time. So Donna will hopefully drop these in the chat, but I know that the links, she has to do it one at a time. But check these out. And we'll be doing some native plant presentations in February if you want to learn more. And you can plant native plants now through like early April is the ideal time to plant these native plants. Some pests to be on the lookout. I know there's leaf miners in my citrus a little bit right now, which is kind of off season. I've seen a lot of scales, a few aphids. They don't like the cold temperatures, and all that rain was hard on the aphids, but with the new growth, I bet they'll be surging back. Slugs and snails. I've seen out of Mal, but what I've really been seeing a lot of is gophers and squirrels. So it's those pests. And for those pests, you really need mechanical barriers. I don't know what else you guys are seeing in the chat. If I'm seeing in the chat. I don't know what else you guys are seeing in the garden. If you want to drop in the chat, we can commiserate. You may want to use dormant oil sprays for some of your fruit trees that maybe are not having outbreaks of pests, but is something that you've had a problem with in the past. And some of those insects may be overwintering. So you can use dormant oil sprays on fruit trees and some of your other plants, and the spraying will smother the overwintering insects. And the fruit trees that have lost their leaves are dormant, so that's the time to be using that dormant oil spray. You can also spray deciduous flowering trees as well as roses. You want to choose a day when the temperature stays above 40 degrees for this dormant oil spraying and the wind is calm. And then you want to make sure it's not going to rain because it is just basically an oil, and if it rains, it will wash it off. You can also spray fixed copper if you've had problems with peach leaf curl, brown rot, rust, bacterial blight, powdery mildew, or anthracnose. And dormant oil or potassium bicarbonate can be sprayed on roses to control black spot, mildew, and rust. You always want to make sure you read all the directions. And you can also spray with both fixed copper and oil. So if you want to know more about the dormant sprays, and especially for like peach leaf curl, but other information, then there's this website here that we're going to share that talks about the dormant oil sprays. Ants, we've already talked about what ants can do. Here in the picture on the top, an ant is farming some scale, and they not only will protect them from beneficial predators, but they'll also move them around on your plants and expand the populations. And basically for your ants, you just want to deny them access to the plants by, kind of keeping plants from touching other plants. And my main recommendation is to trim plants up off the ground. And you can use sticky material, but if it's windy or we get a lot of rain, sometimes that's not very useful. That's Tanglefoot is the product that you may have seen. And so it says like prune canopy at least 30 inches off the ground. That would be for a tree. But even for things like roses or other plants, if you're having a problem with pests like mites or scales or aphids, and if ants are part of keeping the problem going by them protecting them, then pruning them up off the ground is a big help. And then you can use like ant bait stations as well. But the best website to go to for all of these pest problems is the UC IPM page, and that will help you properly identify your pest or disease. It will talk to you about least toxic methods for treatments. And we always recommend to use pesticides as a last option and to use cultural practices or best management practices to keep pests and diseases away. And so, because all pesticides, even organic ones, can have impacts on insect populations, and also like our caterpillars, those are all future butterflies or moths. So if you like to do your own research, the UCIPM site is the place to go. But if you don't want to do your own research, or you have, sometimes you research something and it's like, well, is it this or is it this? Our Master Gardener Helpline is here to help you. And if you guys are joining from outside of the county, each county has a Master Gardener program. But on our website, you can find our Master Gardener Helpline information, and we'll also drop that in the chat. And we have a phone number and an email, and you can email us pictures of the pests or the diseases in your garden. But if you do like to do research, the UCIPM page is the place to go. So let's see what time it is. I think it's like a little before 20. Okay. So for your plant care, for your ornamentals, basically you just would be mulching to keep weeds down, maybe fertilizing if needed in the spring. Your azaleas and your camellias and your rhododendrons are dormant while they're flowering right now. So you would want to fertilize them after they flower. The flowers start to drop and when they start to leaf out in the spring. You can do, my grandma always used to do monthly fertilizing of all of her ornamental flowers around the house. And we did have a lot of blooms, and some people don't want to use that much fertilizer. So if you'd like, you could, sort of do no more than monthly fertilizing of your flowers, and then just prune as needed. For your evergreen trees, maybe you're pruning them to shape them, grooming out dead wood or crossing branches, maybe opening densely foliated trees to avoid wind damage, especially in places like the high desert or in the passes. Then you might want to open up the canopy a little bit. For your roses, now is the time to prune your established roses, even if they haven't lost their leaves. I just saw on social media, they said, prune them around the Super Bowl. So anytime between now and the Super Bowl, then is a good time to prune your roses. If you're going to do vigorous pruning, here's another one before Valentine's Day. So if you're going to do vigorous pruning, then you should do it now rather than later. And the old-fashioned roses with a single bloom time in the spring should be pruned following that bloom so you don't disrupt that bloom. They probably already set their buds already. For pruning them, you want to remove crowded or cross branches. You want to open the center for good light and airflow, making them kind of vase-like. You want to prune the branches at a 45-degree angle with the bud that is just below the cut facing outward. And then just remove any leaves that are dead or diseased and destroy them. And usually want to take it down about no more than 2/3. So if you're being cautious, you could cut out about 1/3. If you're being more aggressive pruning, then about 2/3, leaving no less than 1/3 of the rows. You can be dividing your perennials, such as your agapanthus, your chrysanthemums, coreopsis, your African daisies, your Shasta daisies, daylilies, and dianthus. Those are the ones that are not in bloom right now or about to bloom. For your veggies and herbs, so you're going to be planting your cool season veggies. And so for caring for them, you just want to protect them from frost. The nice thing this time of year, we usually have less pests than in the summer. So for people who don't do a cool season edible garden, I encourage you to give it a try because there's usually less pests. You do need to protect them with frost, and you can use like frost cloth, or you can use just regular sheet, or if you have plastic, you can use that. You just don't want it touching the vegetables. You can also use burlap. And you want to fertilize them if you, between 4 to 6 weeks. Probably in the wintertime, the growth is a little bit slower, maybe every 6 weeks, but some of the vegetables are pretty heavy feeders. So usually you're fertilizing about every 4 to 6 weeks. You're going to fertilize your strawberry plants in February when they start to wake up. You want to protect them from pests. I saw somebody recommended, it's this lady in Los Angeles area. She's written Garden Nerd. She's written some books. And she recommends putting row covers, like a floating row cover, a very light shade cloth or frost cloth actually, over her young cabbages because she was getting a lot of caterpillars. So she puts it over the young plants. And then when they're, I can't remember, like 4 to 6 inches tall or a little bit bigger than that, she'll pull it off. And then they're a little bit bigger plants, and she can just go through and hand pick the caterpillars. But the plants are big enough to sort of have enough material for the caterpillars. So you want to be protecting your plants from pests and reaching out to the Master Gardener helpline if you have questions about that. You want to watch your watering. Make sure if we get those big dumps of rain like we had a couple weeks ago, you want to make sure there's adequate drainage in your pots, or if there's berms that you've set up to hold water in the summertime, you might have to break those so that it's not holding water. And then your plants, like most of your vegetables, should be wrung out, should be like a wrung out sponge. So not too wet, maybe letting them dry slightly, but even watering is probably the most important thing when it comes to growing your vegetables, aside from enough sunlight. Even watering is usually where most people, including myself, go wrong. So just watching that water, if that's the only thing you do, that's the thing to do. And then consider starting your warm season veggies indoors. For your caring for your fruit trees, you're going to wait to fertilize until February or March. That fertilizer will stimulate the trees to leaf out, and we don't want them to leaf out before it's time. If you fertilize in February, they'll leaf out in March. And like mid-February, they'll leaf out in March after our coldest weather usually, and they should be okay. You want to watch for limbs this time of year, especially with lemons, but even it can be your oranges. Make sure that the limbs are not too heavy with fruit. If you think the branch is going to break, it's probably going to break. They're super fragile. Citrus trees are really brittle. So if there's too much fruit, if you have avocados on your trees, if you have avocados on your avocado trees as well, those can cause limb breakage. So sometimes you need to pick some of that fruit just to reduce the chance of limb breakage. All year round, you want to cut out the suckers that come from the rootstocks or the water sprouts. Those are the ones, it's definitely different looking growth. It's weird looking growth, and this is in your citrus trees. Cut those out anytime you see those, and you want to cut those all the way to the base of wherever the larger branch that they're coming from. And then year round, you're going to be cutting out diseased and dead wood. But if we have like a big frost, I've read that like for citrus trees or avocado, really frost sensitive trees, that if we have a big frost and there's dieback due to that frost, there's recommendations to leave that dieback in place until the last threat of frost passes so that it can help protect the tree. So just something to consider when you're pruning out. And if you have questions about that and if you should cut it out, reach out to our Master Gardener helpline, okay? For your stone fruit, right now, if we're getting rain in the next 3 weeks, you probably shouldn't need to give them any water. They're dormant, but their root system is still alive and active. So if there's no rain, maybe water them about once a month. Time to plan your fruit tree garden and get your stone fruits planted. Treat any pests that might be overwintering with the dormant oil. You're going to feed them in spring in like February. And then you're going to shape and prune your trees. I have a little bit of a longer section on pruning the trees that I'm just going to go through quickly. And if you want to review it more, feel free to attend our upcoming workshops that go in depth in fruit tree pruning, or check out the PowerPoint that I have posted on the website in the next 24 hours or so. I'll get this up there, okay? But for your deciduous fruit trees, this is the big time to be pruning. for everything except for your cherries and your apricots. Those you want to prune in August. So if you have cherries and apricots, you don't want to prune those now. You want to sanitize your pruning tools when you move from one plant to the other. And the main goals are to remove dead growth, crossing growth, allow air and sunlight to get into the main part, and create a good structural shape to your tree. You're also reducing the height a little bit. And usually you're cutting back, I don't know, about a third of the tree, I would say. I'm going to let you guys read these details. If you want the PDF, you can review the other details because I know we're at 4:30. For your native plants, they really don't need any care right now. They're going to go be probably sprouting out after this last rain. Most of them go summer dormant. So right now you should be seeing them starting to green up. If there's any dead growth from the summer that hasn't fallen off, you could clean that up. They shouldn't need any mulch or fertilizer, and this is the time to really enjoy them. A few other garden chores are not to fertilize. You're gonna wait a little bit longer. Wait until February for most of your fertilizers. You can mulch your camellias, azaleas, and rhododendrons a little bit. And with peat mulch and cottonseed meal, in my experience, have just kind of left them alone. If you mess with their roots too much, they don't like that. So be careful with your camellias, azaleas, and rhododendrons, especially if they're important to you. Reach out to our Master Gardener helpline if you have any questions. Watch out for weeds that grow exponentially. Our UC integrated pest site also has information on weed management, so you could check that out. It's a great time to apply mulch. It helps keep moisture in and pests away. And you would be putting 2 to 3 inches of mulch around the base of your trunk, avoiding these mulch volcanoes. Like I said earlier, your native plants don't need to be fertilized, and they don't really like to be mulched either. So, and if you want more information on different types of mulch, there's a website that we'll put in the chat. Compost is a great time to apply compost, and that would be 2 to 3 inches of compost and digging that down 4 to 6 inches. In addition to the native plants not liking mulch or fertilizer, most of them don't really like compost either. So don't add those to your native plants. But compost is a great source of microorganisms, and it's not a replacement for fertilizer, but it's still a great option. Be careful when you're using animal fertilizers on plants that you eat, especially things that touch the ground, and make sure it's well aged. And I discourage you from using it on like lettuce or root vegetables. And then we'll have some composting workshops coming up, including one on the 29th that talks about this new SB 1383 regulation where you're supposed to divert compost from the green waste or from the regular trash. So if you're interested in that, we have a full day workshop, and you don't have to attend the whole thing, but part of it will be about that composting regulation. And we'll do some regular composting classes in February as well. For seed saving, most of your summer wildflowers have dropped their seeds, so there won't be much going on there. In February, we're going to do a seed saving for cool season veggies talk, if you're interested in that. Most of your native plants will be going to seed in late summer, in the late spring, summer, or fall. So that's when you're going to be looking for your native seeds. It is a great time to start your veggie seeds for summer, I mentioned. So if you want more information on that, we'll be doing a class in February on seed starting for your veggie garden. And then this Saturday, I mentioned already, we're going to be doing a seed saving troubleshooting workshop. So just my last few things to wrap up, you want to watch out for temperatures below 32. That can impact a lot of your plants, your succulents. You may need to protect your vegetables, and your citrus trees or your other like subtropicals like avocados can get damaged at those temperatures. So be on the lookout for that. Even some things like your fava beans are like more sensitive veggies. And then if you do have a lawn, then before you water it, if it's in the shade, it's probably still pretty wet right now, and it probably doesn't need any sprinkler activity. But if it's in the sun, and check it, and if it's dry, then you might need to give it a little bit more water. So that's it. If you aren't getting our newsletter, you can go to our website, and on the upper right-hand corner of the website, there's a newsletter sign up. And we post blogs and our upcoming classes there, so check that out. And if you have any questions, reach out to our Master Gardener helpline that I mentioned a few times. And if you guys have any questions or you guys want to share what you're doing in your garden right now or anything, then let me know. You can either put it in the chat or you can unmute yourselves. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording. So thanks for joining us, and